Hey guys, welcome back to Buzzer to Buzzer. Alrighty, guys. So in the past couple of months, we have already made our NBA MVP predictions way long ago when the season started. But guys, ever since the season has started, so many things have elapsed, from injuries to new teammates being added to teams, shifting the whole NBA landscape. And over the past couple of weeks, we've unfortunately seen many more injuries go down in big name stars. At the beginning, we had a bunch of us talking about LeBron James, Joel Embiid being at the forefront of the MVP race. But as we all know, in the past couple of weeks, Joel Embiid has gone down with an injury. LeBron James has gone down with an injury as well, his ankle. Anthony Davis is currently out as well. Kevin Durant is out as well, meaning the MVP race is truly up for grabs. And the number one spot, truly nobody knows who can have it. With all the injuries being considered, guys, how is our view on the NBA MVP race changing? And who do we have currently at the number one spot with all the injuries?
Before all these injuries, especially with Joel Embiid, for his injury, I had him at the number one spot, and then I had Nikola Jokic at two. So I think you can probably assume that I have Nikola Jokic at one right now. I think, even before Joel Embiid was injured, I think you can argue for both cases. Nikola Jokic is having a fantastic season. I think recently he has his 10th triple-double this whole season. Obviously, the Nuggets have a great record, and this is by far his best season out of his career so far. So it's definitely it's not definite for sure. You can argue other players if you want, but I have Nikola Jokic at one.
I think it's very easy or very hard to choose between James Harden and Nikola, but I think I'm gonna have to go with James Harden as my number one right now. I think he's just been playing at a really high level. One of the best offensive years by any player pretty much ever. Um, I think with having KD out and having Kyrie, miss games sporadically has helped him. But it's going to be interesting to see because we're going to see Kyrie come back and we're going to see KD come back in the near future. And it's going to be very interesting what happens with James Harden's role as more stars come back in. But as of right now, I think you have to go with James at number one.
I still think Joel Embiid is number one. If you look at his body of work, he's missed a few games, but he's going to come back. And if you look at his body of work this season, he's impacted the Sixers to become the best team in the Eastern Conference, right? Joel Embiid, he's putting up better numbers slightly, but the Nuggets are the fifth best team. They're not even fourth or third. If they're top three, sure, I can understand the argument, but the MVP is always given to the best player on the best team. James Harden, he's benefiting from KD, as Orion said, not being there. But Joel Embiid and his body of work has shown that he's helped the Sixers get to where they are. Sure, they can sustain it. They've lost a few games. They've won a few games. But when he comes back, he's going to continue that, and he's going to finish off the season strong. Missing 5 to 10 games shouldn't have an impact on whether or not he's still MVP.
For me at this point, when Joel Embiid went down, LeBron James was number one forefront, easy. But now with LeBron being out of 3 to 4 weeks, I'm predicting the future, and it's going to look unlikely, I think, considering LeBron James. He should have won the MVP 8 to 10 times previously already in his career. But I think that his name's going to go out, especially if this injury prolongs for a longer period of time. Considering all that, I'm looking at how consistent has a player been. Initially with James Harden, he missed like a solid 2 to 3 weeks span because of the whole thing going on with him going to the Rockets to the Nets. But I think it's equal now. The amount of time LeBron James is about to miss now. James Harden, he's about to miss. He missed a similar amount of time. So now James Harden is probably going to be my number one. He just had last night against the Portland Trailblazers, 27, 9, and 17 assists. It would either be him or Damian Lillard. Dame Dollar's been balling out as well. But James Harden, the way he's carrying that team, meshing in so well with that Nets team, despite KD being out, Kyrie personal reasons like I already mentioned. So if I had to go with one person right now, it'd be James Harden. But I wouldn't be surprised if when LeBron comes back in superhuman time, he's going to be back at the number one spot. All right, guys, and on the topic of all these injuries, for the past couple of weeks, we've seen Kevin Durant being out with a hamstring injury. Anthony Davis, he went out a couple of weeks as well. And it's getting a bit, yesterday we saw a segment about Stephen A. on his first day coming out. He's suspicious of why these injuries have been prolonging. And I think all the obvious is pointing to that these teams are looking to hold these players in healthy. They know they're going to make the playoffs. So what's it looking like? Are we going to expect KD and AD to make a push at the end of the season? Or are we about to see them be out for another long period of time, ready to make a playoff push?
Nobody's officially clinched a playoff spot yet, but we all know who's going to make this playoffs, especially regarding the top 4, top 5 teams in each conference. And so, as it is, these teams know what they're going to do, and their load management. Obviously, the NBA has gotten more stricter on load management and making sure players play every single game. And so, to avoid that, they just list them as injured. Anthony Davis is expected to be reevaluated in a week, and I wouldn't be surprised if his injury gets extended. Same thing with Kevin Durant. They're trying to make sure that they're prepped enough for the playoffs, but they're not overworked so that they can be at 100% throughout the whole playoffs.
I also think with those two players specifically, you look at AD. I mean, he was having Achilles problems, and that's pretty much the worst injury you can have in sports. So I think they're being extra cautious about it. They don't want to, overplay him and then have him rupture his Achilles, which would be unfortunate. And then you look at Kevin Durant; he's coming off a torn Achilles, and so again, they don't want him having to deal with another injury. So I think in both cases, both teams are just being overly cautious, knowing that the playoffs are what matter and not the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole mentality of both teams, Lakers and Nets right now, is rather be safe than sorry, especially with two of their star players. Like Arian said, regular season, I feel like it's kind of a lock for the top 3, top 5 teams, like Harsh also said. So I think they're all looking in the playoffs right now. Obviously, playoffs is where it matters, and both teams have to be like at their peak performance for the playoffs. So they're definitely resting their players so they can be the best that they can be.
For sure, and I think we're going to see a similar thing going on with LeBron James. I don't think he's not focused on that MVP anymore. It's more about the finals and that push he can make. If we see a Lakers and Nets finals, I think all eyes from both organizations are set on that. Everybody's expecting it, and wouldn't be surprised to see KD and AD being out for a longer period of time. All right, guys, those are our thoughts on the MVP race changing up for the NBA. As always, guys, be sure to like button, subscribe, and comment down below. Who do you think is taking that #1 spot, as considering the large amount of injuries going down? Hopefully, these players make a speedy recovery so that we can see some great basketball. But until then, guys, take care. Catch you guys on the next one.